Welcome, everybody, to Bears Nation Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Lapka, alongside the man, the myth, the legend, Kellen Garanstein. And today, Kellen, we have a guest his voice, I don't know how to describe it. It bleeds football. It bleeds Bears. Like when I hear the voice of Tom Thayer, I hear Bears.
You hear blue and orange.
Immediate. You hear blue and orange. Tom Thayer, color commentator for WBBM News Radio, Chicago Bears Radio, and former Chicago Bear for 8 years, of course, member of the '85 Super Bowl team, joins the show. Tom, how are we doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Excited for the start of football season. You know, I'm excited for high school season. I'm excited for the college season. And I'm excited for the pro season because I got my brother coaches the freshman program here at Joliet Catholic. My nephew is a part of the coaching program. Tomorrow night, Notre Dame, Ohio State play. And then, you know, it's NFL kickoff weekend. I saw that.
Come on.
You know, you're hiding it behind the light, but you know, I'm a big promoter of high school football because if it wasn't for high school football and all the time and effort that parents and coaches and the support staff for every one of these kids put into it, you know, Jeff and I wouldn't be broadcasting pro football if they didn't have the roots of high school football.
You're absolutely right. Kellen played at Homewood Flossmoor, you know, South Suburban School.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yes, sir.
Legend of Flossmoor, Kellen Garanstein. But yeah, I went to Ohio State. I graduated last year, and Kellen is currently there playing club football. So we're looking forward to tomorrow's game. Tomorrow's going to be a good one. But we do have the Bears coming up soon in just about 9 days. I can't believe it's so close. Tom, this is going to be your 17th year. Is this your 17th year doing Bears radio now?
Well, no, it's my 26th year of doing the inside in the booth for a Bears radio broadcast.
Wow. Is 17th with WBBM or how long have you been with WBBM?
I don't know. My first game was when the Bears had a preseason game in Ireland. And I think that was maybe 89. So I've been broadcasting longer than you guys have been alive.
Much longer. And let's hope, this year is one that's at least exciting, right? Kel and I have talked a lot about, there's a lot of different evaluations of this team, but the bottom line for us, based off of what we watched in the preseason and what we saw at camp, we were out at Family Fest, we were able to see some practices, is we feel like we're going to see a team that plays hard and at least a fun, entertaining product on the field. Are you feeling kind of the same things as, at least as far as what we see on the field, the product? Is it going to be entertaining at the very least?
You know what? I don't want to be entertained. I want to put a team out there that eventually wins the division. And I think there's been such a change of the culture up at Hallis Hall. It went from Ryan Poles to Matt Eberflus. Both of these guys, everything they've ever said, it's come true. Matt Eberflus, the very first day he took the podium, he says, you guys better put on your running shoes. And you guys both play sports. You know what kind of threat or encouragement that is. And every single day, man, what Matt Eberflus has challenged these guys with, the assistant coaches have done a great job. The players have lived up to their expectations. Every time I listen to Ryan Poles up at the podium, I love what he says. He's a guy that has football in his background, and he, kind of is judging what the talent, where the talent needs to be in order for them to compete for a division. So, yeah, I do. Entertaining football to me is things being fundamentally done correct. Great catches, great decisions by the quarterback, great effort by the offensive line and David Montgomery and those types of things. But I grew up a Bears fan my whole life. I want the Bears to win the division. So the thing that will entertain me is if they get in a competitive position so they can start competing for the division.
I think we both know that in order for them to do that, that offense is, we've got to pick it up from where we've seen them be at. And you're out at practice a lot. You're at training camp a lot. Do you think that the offense that Luke Getsy has built and the design of it is really suited towards Justin Fields? And can we see them take that next step and at least compete for a division? If not this year, then maybe next year.
Kellen, I think Justin Fields is really going to benefit from Luke Getsy the most because, when they drafted Justin Fields a year ago, they already put together an offense that was going to best fit Andy Dalton and Nick Foles. So now this is an offense since Luke Getsy's got hired. He kind of, discovered and investigated the traits and the athleticism of a guy like Justin Fields. And then how do you incorporate his athleticism and everything that he can provide for an offense into the offense? And so it was a developing relationship. So going there through OTAs, mandatory minicamp, every day at training camp, you kind of saw this partnership develop. And Luke Getsy is a no-nonsense guy. So it's not only how does it affect Justin, how does it affect the receivers, how does it transfer to the tight ends, how does it affect the offensive line, and making sure that Luke Getsy and Justin Fields are on the same page. And I like the fact that I've seen throughout the preseason that Luke Getsy's on the sideline. So as soon as Justin comes off the field, they have eye contact. They have facial expressions. They able to look at that slides on their tablet. Now, this is what I'm seeing on first down. This is what I expect on third down. So I think the transfer of information from the source and Luke Getsy to Justin Fields, it allows Justin to feel more confident and more positive. And the first time they were able to game plan was the Cleveland game this past week. And I think you saw some of the results when they do have a point of emphasis against their opponent and the vulnerabilities their opponent is showing them.
And I'll be honest, we've come on this show a lot and we talked about, we believe that Justin Fields' potential is this, and we're going to see this and that in this new system. And it was nice to finally see the product of that against Cleveland, right? To finally see the numbers be put up, to finally see a functioning offense. But of course, when you look at the preseason, it's always taken with a grain of salt, right? And, everyone wants to take the numbers and, 14 for 16, 3 touchdowns. That's great. But, again, there's an asterisk, right? It's preseason. But I still think that when you looked at what occurred in those 3 games, specifically that game against Cleveland, there are things to take away that lead you to believe some of what you saw in those games is what you will see during the season. So how do you tell those people who kind of don't really believe that the preseason is an indication of anything that, okay, just because of how many design rollouts they were doing, just because of, the way his footwork looks different and his arm motion looks different, that the things you saw in preseason lead you to believe there's optimism for this offense during the regular season?
Justin is a point of emphasis in where this offense can go and how successful it can be, but he's not a one-man show. I think when you look at the determination that David Montgomery runs with, being complemented up front by a really aggressive run blocking scheme that they've inserted here, where they've called this outside zone, but it has a lot of other factors and effects in this offense. You think of what Cole Kmet can be and what Darnell Mooney and the rest of these receivers can grow into. So, it is the Justin Fields show just from the point of view of the quarterback. However, all these other complementary pieces, man, I'll take Montgomery with any running back in the league. I know what Darnell Mooney is if he can be complemented by a couple other receivers. If they can get Cole Kmet active in this offense in the red zone, most specifically, then you're going to see the different parts of this offense become building blocks for Justin. And then you think, Justin has the athleticism to extend that protection by a half a second to 1 second to 1 step. Now, if you're a receiver that you realize, man, if I can get open when Justin's scrambling, he's got great long ball accuracy. And so I think that, Justin and his traits can complement the guys in front of him, and they're going to have to complement Justin as much.
I want to ask you about the O-line as a whole, but I think one specific player that everyone wants to know about, probably besides Tevin Jenkins, is Braxton Jones. That's the guy that's protecting the blind side of our future franchise guy. And have you seen the steps that you wanted to see from him as far as when we go to OTAs, to training camp, to actually getting under the lights? I know we heard Ryan Poles talk about that yesterday, and they're really happy with him. Are you really seeing what you want to see from a 5th-round pick that we're asking to start, and protect this guy versus a lot of criticism that the Bears are facing? They're saying that we're not protecting Justin Fields. He doesn't have the weapons. Do you think Braxton Jones can be that guy that really silences that and puts Ryan Poles on the map as a guy who really knows how to evaluate football players?
Yeah, I do. There's a couple ways. They're going to run probably a lot of 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, 1 back. So they have just a security blanket before they go out on a pass route to help, the offensive tackle, just give him a hand of security. But the thing that I like most about Braxton Jones is he's a super intelligent guy. and his intelligence carries over to the podium and into football. And my offensive line coach when I was with the Bears, who's a Hall of Fame player, a Hall of Fame coach, and Dick Stanfeld, he always says, look, I can't coach you every play. You need to coach yourself. And go back and listen to some of the interviews by Braxton, and he talks about what he needs to work on, where his improvement needs to come from. What does he have to do better to become the tackle that he can ultimately be? How do I use my length as an asset? And then you think of I got Cody Whitehair right here next to me. And this dude is a rock. He's probably coming off the best training camp I've ever seen him have since he's been here with the Bears. So is he going to come out there and play like, Orlando Pace week 1 of his regular season career? No.
Right.
But can he develop strength in attitude, in diet, in weight room, in understanding the offense better and help himself? Yes. I really love the new offensive line coach, Chris Morgan, because this dude, he pays attention to the minor details of the whole offensive line that makes the entire group better. And some of the best things that will happen for the future of Braxton Jones is they have an offensive line coach that can come in here and transfer helpful information on a play-to-play basis, day-to-day, game-to-game, and whomever you're playing against. He's going to be playing against Nick Bosa. Everybody knows about Nick Bosa. When he's healthy, he's a great pass rusher. But now the offense isn't going to sit there and, play, okay, let's have some concern with Nick. Let's run the ball at him as much as we can and make him absorb some of the abuse. So, yeah, I'm all for it for what he can provide for this offense and what he can grow into be.
I wanted to ask you about Alex Leatherwood, but before I do that, you mentioned something that was interesting to me. You talked about Chris Morgan and then how, the development has been good for his positional unit, and something in the last regime that I feel like we didn't see a lot was development of players, specifically ones who would come in this case, right? You pick up 6 players off of waiver claims, and all these guys were cut from other teams. And what Ryan Poles said yesterday was, look, our belief is that we're bringing these guys in and we have faith in our coaching staff to develop them into what we believe they can be and reach their potential, whatever it was when they, were drafted, what they were supposed to be. Being, at camp and seeing how this coaching staff operates, have you seen their ability to develop players as a pretty good trait of the coaching staff?
I have. Just take one guy, for example, Tevin Jenkins. Tevin Jenkins 3 weeks ago was on the scrap heap, and he wasn't going to,
Right.
He was going to be traded or cut or wherever, maybe have a different venue to work for. Tevin Jenkins has developed an attitude and a work ethic and been coached positively by Chris Morgan to develop into the starting right guard. And not because it's desperation, it's because he's proved himself. And he's gone out there and competed in multiple practices and showed this coaching staff that he's good enough to start. And I'm excited for Tevin because, when I came to the Bears, I was an outsider and I just had to sit there and wait for my opportunity to present itself. And I didn't have a close relationship with the players or the coach. I was sitting there just going to work every day. And then all of a sudden my opportunity presented itself. I took advantage of it, and I stayed in that place for 9 years. And it's the same thing with Tevin. So when you talk about, do I see that this coach has the ability to develop these players? I like the recognition of Ryan Poles saying, okay, if he doesn't fit at right tackle, how is he at right guard? Let's investigate that. And then he comes out there and proves that he can play that position at a high level. And, for me as a Bears fan and the next offensive lineman, I'm excited to see him earning that opportunity.
Yeah, I'm excited about the offense too, just to see what they can become. But I'll move on to the defensive side now. Me and Kevin have talked about on this show before that I've said I think the defensive line is one of the more underrated units on the team. When I went to training camp, I thought there was just a lot of juice in those drills. Those guys were real fired up. Al-Qadim Muhammad was playing really well. Obviously, we know about Robert Quinn, who, could potentially be a Hall of Famer. And then we've got two young guys behind him. I was super excited for the Dominique Robinson pick. So tell me what you think about that D-line on the other side of the trenches now.
Well, Kelly, you're looking at, because the guy that's impressed me the most is Al-Qadim Muhammad. You talk about a defensive end that has instincts of everything he can face. Is it a run at him? Is it a run away? Is it a play action at him? Is it a bootleg to his side, bootleg away? He digests information instantly, and then he's got the hustle and the work ethic to either give chase or disengage with the point of attack lineman. So I really, really like what I see out of him. And then, yeah, we know what Robert Quinn's capable of. The dude is a pass rusher unlike any others. I always think in my mind, if I'm an offensive lineman and I'm getting ready to set on a pass protection responsibility against Robert Quinn, I don't know where my aiming point would be. And I think it's equally as confusing to the offensive lineman he faces. And so this system is, I think, really benefits those two guys. And then Dominic Robinson, man, his upside is unknown right now because he's as good as athlete at that position as I've seen in a long time. But when I was here in the 80s, Buddy Ryan told Richard Dent, until you learn how to play the run, you're not going to play defensive end for me. And then he learned how to play the run and developed into a Hall of Famer. And I think that's kind of similar to Dominique Robinson. You can't be one-dimensional because you're so athletic. You got to be able to do it all. And so having the opportunity to study behind Quinn, to study behind Al-Quadin Muhammad, to study behind Trevis Gibson, I think the defensive end upside, has unlimited potential. And then they got to be complemented by the inside guys, Justin Jones, Angelo Blackson, and the rest of the guys that will hold down the fort on the inside.
I like what you said there about Buddy Ryan saying that to Richard Dent. What is that makes me think, what's the best thing a coach ever told? Like the one thing that stuck with you the most that a coach told you that you just never, because there's certain things as athletes, coaches will tell you something, and there's certain mantras or certain phrases that you'll never forget, right? You hear it and you live by it, you'll never forget. What was something, specifically from a Bears coach from being on that team that they told you that you just, it stuck with you, you'll never forget it?
I say it all the time, man, and I preach it to young kids. And if you think, you're beat. And what I mean by that is one time I came off the sideline and I messed up a play or something, and I looked at Dick Stanfeld, our offensive line coach, who to me, Dick Stanfeld was the best offensive line coach there's ever been. The attention to details, what he can tell you about your job is immeasurable because it's not something. So I went back there and I walked to the sideline and he looked at me. Well, and I go, I thought. He goes, hey, don't ever say that again. Because if you think, you're beat. You got to go there, and every single time you break the huddle, you go to the line of scrimmage, you have to know what you're doing. There is no hesitation for thought. There is no, he thought one thing, I thought, no, that's inexcusable. And that's what Jeff and I say it all the time. If you think, you're beat. Because if you're a quarterback, you're an offensive lineman, you're a receiver, you're a running back, Walter Payton never thought. He knew. and that's just the case of it. If you think, you're beat.
I love that.
I love that too. I'll ask just a simple, what was it like going up against that defense? I mean, every day in practice, there's Hall of Famers on that defense. There's legends in Chicago. We all know my family is really close with Gary Fensick, and like every time that name comes up, it just like brings back all the memories of Singletary and Dent and Hampton, and obviously Walter on the offense. So of course, going up against the defense, what was that like? But then what's it like, playing on the same side as, the greatest guy to ever carry a football?
That's a funny story, Cal, because I remember the first time that I was with the Bears, I was in the huddle, and I'm at the huddle, and I'm looking across the huddle, and I'm looking at Walter Payton, and I'm going, "Frank, that's Walter Payton, dude!" That's the way it was going through my head. I just couldn't believe it. And so then they get in the huddle. McMahon comes in the huddle, and he calls a basic play, and it's just called a slant 45. And a slant 45 is an off tackle play that I have a block that's instrumental in the play being success or a failure, and Walter Payton is the ball carrier. And so I go, okay, slant 45, ready, break. We turn around, and I look, and there's the 85 defense. And I look, and there's McMichael, there's Hampton, there's Richard, that's Mikey Hartenstein, Singletary, Otis, Wilbur, Fensick, Dewerson, the whole crew is right there. And it it snapped me back to life in just an instant, because I'm going, okay, I'm now working myself as a part of this offense, and Walter Payton's standing behind me, who is the greatest of all greats. But you break the huddle, and you know what it's like. You break the huddle, you go to the line of scrimmage, and all of a sudden you got Hamp and Ming are just frothing at the mouth, just ready to make us look bad. So it was a dose of reality from the instant they called the play to breaking the huddle to go to the line of scrimmage, and then realizing what you have to try to accomplish against that team, that defense, with all the surrounding parts in place.
On the slant 45, were you successful on the play? Did you make the block? Was it a successful play on that slant 45?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, but it was a working combination block. So I was working with Van Horn, the right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
We get movement on the defensive end, then we work up to the second level, which was Singletary. So, and it's a drill called 9-on-7. So when we were going to the line of scrimmage, the defense knew that we were running the ball because that's just the period that you were in. But because, you know, you have Ditka on the offensive side of the ball, you got Buddy Ryan on the defensive side of the ball. These two guys are going at it. Buddy wants his defense to look good. Ditka wants his offense to look good. So it was the real deal. It was live football. It wasn't there was no joking around. So it's not like Walter would have went for 75 yards. We were out there trying to get, 4 yards of carry for Walter, and that's what we were efforted to do.
We training camp's wrapping up here. What's the best training camp story you have from that time? What are some of the best moments that you've got from training camp with those guys, whether it be off the field stuff or on the field stuff? There's memories that stick out. Just a couple memories, and then we'll get back to other Bears things.
The practices were so serious, and we went to my first training camp with the Bears. We went 22 straight days of doubles, every day in pads with conditioning after every practice. So then we would go, go to dinner, and then we would have like a 2.5-hour meeting at night. And then we had a half hour of free time before bed check. And we had like probably 35 of us had some type of scooters, these Honda Elite, these Honda 150s or 250s and stuff. And so from the time you got out of your meeting to bed check, everybody would fly downtown on their scooters because there were some bars down there, and we'd all get together and go and have beers together. And it was the greatest camaraderie of the day, but you only had 30 minutes. So it was almost like you bust downtown, you have beers, you relax, and, it started all over again. So that 30 minutes every night. And the thing about it is the only carrot in front of the horse that Dick would dangle in front of us is that if we had a great practice on Wednesday, he would cancel Wednesday night meetings. So that was our only time off, day off. That was our only reward. So if we did practice well on Wednesday and then we had a couple of extra hours, then we would turn that town out. Platteville was our stomping ground.
That's pretty good, man. That's pretty good. I'll get back to current day Bears. As fun as that was, we'll have to get back to that stuff sometimes, because I could talk about 85 Bears or hear stories about them forever. But
Kellen, I wish we were alive, dude. I wish we were alive, man.
I know. Would have been a great time. But I'll ask. So Kevin did an interview with Jaquan Brisker and Aaron Donald's trainer from Western PA, and he had some great things to say about Jaquan Brisker. So I'll ask you about him and Kyler Gordon. I was a big fan of both of them coming out of college. I thought pound for pound, Kyler Gordon was one of the best athletes I saw on tape, especially being across from a guy like Trent McDuffie at Washington, who was, bona fide first-round pick. And then, Brisker, really the injury is what kind of had him fall to where he was. So do the rookies on the defense excite you in the back end as a whole? Because I think right now that's a pretty strong part of the team. I know I said I like the defensive line, but on paper, I think we can look at that back five and be pretty confident in Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, Eddie Jackson, whoever's playing nickel, and Jaquan Brisker.
Yeah, one has to complement the other. So you talk about the defensive line, they got to put some pressure on the quarterback for these guys to perform at the level in which they can. The thing that's excited me most about Kyler Gordon throughout training camp is because it's kind of an unfair drill when they do one-on-ones, wide receivers against defensive backs. Probably the most impressive defensive back that I've seen in the last 6 or 7 years in one-on-ones is Kyler Gordon. He's strong at the line of scrimmage. He can get the wide receiver off his course. He can, athletically stay with them downfield according to whatever route he's running. And then he's got a really good feel for the ball when it's in the air, both reading the receiver and reading the flight of the ball. So I was going, wow, are we getting things blown out of proportion with Kyler Gordon, or is he going to be this good? And Kyler Gordon is lived up to all the expectations that I've heard about him coming into the mix. And then when you look at Brisker, he's physical, he's big, he can play in the box, he understands how to read an offense according to down and distance, field position, hash mark they're on, where their vulnerabilities lie, and then he's got the willingness to come in and light you up. And so I think I'm hoping these young guys, Kyler Gordon, but Jaquan Brisker mostly, spills over to Eddie Jackson. Because if this defensive backfield is going to be what it possibly could be, Eddie Jackson's got to get back on track of where he was a couple of years ago. And so, you got a lot of pressure put on these young guys. But like Matt Eberflus says, I want to play young guys. And if these young guys can come out here and play like we expect them to play, then they're going to get their opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, Jaquan Brisker's trainer said he thinks he has the potential to be a Hall of Famer. Like he and of course, you take it with a grain of salt. His trainer is, obviously going to be a little bit more, optimistic to say something like that. But the thing that him, Kyler Gordon, the entire offense, the entire team have in common to me is they're all freakishly athletic. Like everyone on that team is extremely, extremely athletic. And I was going through it yesterday. I was going through the roster. I was thinking about it. I was watching some things and I was like, I think I'd put this team's athleticism up with any team in the NFL.
They're a fast football team. Yeah.
It's so different. Some of these guys, because of the transactions that have taken place in a couple of days, I'm still getting to know. But I think there's about 19 guys around from last year's team. So that tells you a lot about what the incoming staff thought about the athleticism of this team. And Kevin, you're saying it exactly right. I think the increase in the athleticism has, the arrows pointed up. When you look at Nick Morrow at the linebacker position and how well he can run, you look at Roquan Smith in the will position, how well he can run. Kellen brought up Al-Quadin Muhammad, how well his instincts match his athleticism. What Justin Jones can do at that 3-technique defensive tackle. So I think that the athleticism of this football team is completely different. But now what I got to see is I need Pringle to get back in the mix, because if there was a receiver that showed me immediate explosiveness and had speed that could scare defenders, it was Pringle. So now he needs to get healthy and he needs to get back on the field. And all the other complementary pieces of Darnell Mooney at the receiver position, whether it's Pettis or whomever, EQ St. Brown, these guys got to come up and they got to be the type of athletes that we imagine them could be within this offense.
We'll head off the field for this one because me and Kevin, we always talk about how I think most Bears fans do this, and I don't know if you know this, Tom, I'm sure you do, but we mute the broadcast when we're watching on Fox or CBS, and everybody brings their radios down, and we turn to WBBM, and we have you and Jeff Joniak on. And like I said, you two are the voice of orange and blue. So what's it like working with a guy like that? I mean, I have memories of hearing, the Devin Hester returns and, you are ridiculous. Like I have so many amazing, amazing memories that I just reminisce about them all the time. So tell me something good about Jeff Joniak. What's it like working with him and how fun is he? Because for us, he's a legend, but for you, he's your coworker. So tell us something cool about him.
He's an amazing guy. He really is, and I'm so happy that his success. But nothing has gone under. He's the hardest working guy I've ever been around in my life. The attention to details, the memorization of the names on a weekly basis, the time he puts up at Hallis Hall to be in front of the players, to go to the open locker room, we go to every single practice together, and we sit at practice and we sit there kind of privately just watching every detail. We're fortunate that we get to watch the tapes of everything that goes on to make sure that we understand, what they're going through, and being able to watch the games and everything so closely. I admire him so much because, when Jeff was being considered for the job, he wasn't the guy that was getting, this is the guy that he deserves. And there's other guys out there with bigger names with this type of market. Man, when they hired Jeff Joniak, they picked the exact right guy.
Yeah,
and I admire his work ethic every single day. And it inspires me because there's times where I'm going, okay, I know football. I've been around the game my whole life. I study it a lot. But it's, I want to live up to his broadcast expectations because he wants a perfect broadcast. And, that's what he expects out of me, because that's what I see out of him.
Absolutely. And it is perfect, man. I'm telling you, when I hear this voice, again, Kel and I, we're both in our early 20s, man. So, I'm talking about, I'm 11 years old. Mom's driving me back from the grocery store. We're trying to get back before noon. We're listening to pregame on the car radio, and I'm hearing Tom Thayer, Jeff Joniak chop it up about Bears versus Packers. And it's just, it's electrifying. I absolutely love it. But you talk about work ethic, and, we hear a lot of stories about this team and this coaching staff. And, there was a lot of stuff during OTAs about Darnell Mooney and Justin Fields, and they couldn't get each other out of the building, and they would have competitions, right? Who could stay in the building the longest to keep doing prep. And I just feel like this team in general, like they really want it. I feel like the work ethic is there. And obviously that's necessary for any team that wants to be successful. Just being at Hallis Hall and seeing it firsthand, we've heard the stories, but can you attest to that work ethic that this team has?
It's inspired by Matt Eberflus. So I think that his message was so clearly delivered, and every single time he stands up in front of the team, they respect what he is saying. He's never tried to, there is no gray area. And I think that the players respected what Matt was delivering, and so they wanted to work harder. They were inspired by what the message he was delivering and how prepared they wanted to be to make this a better football team. But, Darnell Mooney, that dude's different because it's always about what he can do to be better, to get better, to improve, how he can work alongside Justin Fields to get to know each other better. So there is no, I thought, because they know. And that's what getting back. There is no thinking between the two. They know each other. And so I think when you have young guys on the team like Justin and like Darnell Mooney, and they work so hard and they put so much time in there, and it's 9:00 on a weeknight in the off season, and Darnell Mooney is still in the Peyton Center catching balls from the jugs machine or getting Justin to throw them. It just doesn't happen a lot. And when I was playing with the Bears, we didn't have this type of facility to go and work on an indoor facility and put all this effort. But when you see these young kids that are so attached to wanting to be successful, man, it's cool to see because their work ethic is infectious and it spills over to the young guys. And so when you got a Darnell Mooney and a Justin Fields, and then you got Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker, and all of a sudden they see two of the most serious veterans on the football team and their work ethic, they're inspired because of it, and they know what it can ultimately mean.
I'll ask about the glue guys on this team. Me and Kevin, we did a roster breakdown of the 53 the other day, and we were kind of shocked that Mike Pennell made the team. But when I went to training camp, everyone's like, Mike P's the funniest guy on the team. They put it on TikTok and all that, and he's just the guy that brings the juice. He's hyping up the fans. Is there a guy on the team, if it is Mike or if it's someone else, you think that just he's the one that makes the other 52 better, or he brings the juice to practice, or he makes everyone enjoy playing football? Because I know it can get tough. I know sometimes that they get burnt out. So is there a guy that makes every day going to work fun for this team that you see, maybe besides Eberflus?
Yeah, a kind of an understated type of seriousness is a guy like Cody Whitehair. And Cody and I were doing All Access a couple weeks ago. And early in training camp, it might have been day 3, I saw him. He was being given a Veterans Day off. And I go, Cody, in all the time I've been here, I've never seen you take a Veteran Day off. He goes, yeah, I never had one. He goes out to work every single day. So he may not go out there and be a jokester. He's going to go out there and set the example to the other guys that you have to come out here every day and work, especially if you're trying to get an offensive line to gel together. And so that's the process of work that you have to have. But, you have the guys on the defensive side of the ball, like you talk about Pennell and stuff, that are fun guys that have a little bit of more juice around, because that's the way defenses work. But I think this is a big group of guys that were, really trying to get to know each other. And the expectations that Matt had for them was so high that there wasn't a lot of nonsense. It was always about going out there, working hard and getting better. And, I think, you get a guy like Cole Kmet, you have this high expectations that are being thrust upon them. You can't go out there and kind of jack around. You got to go out there and put it on the field every day.
Absolutely. Tom, we know you got to head out of here soon. We got football 9 days away, and we know your enthusiasm for how much you looking forward to football. We're so close we could taste it, man. How much you looking forward to that first game against the Niners?
I can't tell, because what kind of bothers me, so I'm a Bears fan. I grew up in Chicago my whole life. I've been around here, and I'm watching the development of this team. Ever since they hired Eberflus and Ryan Poles, it's been exciting to see what they have been building. To me, I'm kind of like, there's so, when you talk about San Francisco 49ers and they're saying, oh, this is a Super Bowl ready team, they're not talking about Trey Lance he doesn't have any reps on an NFL field. He's a great unknown as much as Justin Fields. So I want to see that Bears crowd fill up Soldier Field, be as angry as they possibly can be, make that environment unlike any other. And then when Matt Eberflus puts this hits principle process into motion, I want to see San Francisco to walk out of there and go, whoa, hey, listen, man, we just faced a monster that we weren't ready for. And I think as much of it has to come from the fans as it does from the players themselves.
You heard this. If you guys are listening to the show right now and you're going to the game next Sunday at home, be loud. Tom Thayer says be loud. Give the Niners something to not prepare for. Us. And one thing, Chicago fans, it doesn't matter if we're 0-17 or we're 17-0. They're going to show up and they're going to be rowdy. They're going to be loud, and especially week 1, everyone's 0-0. Everyone's got technically an equal chance to make the Super Bowl. Everything goes. Tom Thayer, we appreciate you. You were absolute joy, man. Absolute blast for us. Thanks for coming on the show today, man.
Kevin, Kellen, I appreciate it. Let's do it again during the season.
Oh,
Sounds good, wait. Tom. Looking forward to it, man. All right, this has been Bears Nation Podcast for myself, Kevin Lapka, for Kellen Garrison, and of course for Tom Thayer. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time. As always, bear down.